Where do you see owners leaving the most money on the table when it's time to exit?
Couple areas. Improper tax planning, taxes takes a big hit, and the thought process that they weren't going to be taxed as heavily as they were, right? So there's so many ways of exiting the business and structuring it precisely for maximizing the code to the benefit of the seller. And I think a lot of owners miss that due to the time crunch of wanting to sell it and just the exhaustion of what it takes to get brought up to speed on understanding that process. So many business owners are just in their business, but it's so much more to being successful at what they do. So that's one of the main challenges that I see is just helping them understand, hey, please understand these things so that they can understand how to minimize their taxes. The other thing is what causes them to leave so much money on the table, in my opinion, is not having the advisors around them to help them understand what we're doing for them. That's just really painful in my experience is, we know how to help them get from where they are to where they say they want to be, but they have to understand it and be willing participant in it. And so if anyone can bring up something on helping us understand how to help the seller have some advisors around them so that they can understand the process more, that would be great because that would help tremendously minimize the amount of money that they're leaving on the table.
I think I would go do the same thing. I was just going through my mind. There's so many different places that you leave money on the table. And I think the biggest mistake is not having the right advisor. I was a consultant and I hire good consultants, not just the cheapest consultant. And I said a good consultant worth their money, their weight in gold, right? So a good consultant can make a big difference. Give you examples. I was thinking that you have to find the buyer who has money and who thinks the business is valuable to get the right value. Any buyer coming in is going to not offer you full price. And if you don't know how to negotiate, you're not going to get there. Even before you get to the point, if you don't know how to present the value that you have in your business to the buyer is not going to see it as clearly. So they're going to make their decision. So there's so many things a consultant does that is not something an owner understands or appreciates and leaves millions on the table. So there's even for saving money in the transactions, as Asa pointed out, in taxes, setting it up for your children for their taxes down the road, right? So all kinds of things are part of the leaving money on the table. And somebody who knows of how all connect all the dots together and may not be an expert in all areas, but knows how to connect all the dots and has the right experts around them to connect the dots. It is way more complex than owner thinks it is. They just think you go to the bank and you cash the check. It is not like that at all.
My thoughts on money on the table. Yeah, I'll just go with what I initially thought. We don't focus on money that's left on the table because we're not optimizing for that. We're optimizing for post-exit fulfillment. And so I watch founders over and over say, I'm going to do an earnout because it's going to give me 20% more money. And they agree to do something for 2 to 5 years. And 6 months into that agreement, they realize that they hate the company that they're working for. They don't like what the company is doing with the company that they sold to them. And being an employee and getting time off approved and expense reports done is not something that they ever thought that they would be doing after 30 years of running their own company. So our conversation is very much about what do you want life to be like after you exit? And making the decisions on the front end that don't encumber that. That to me is so much more important than an extra 20% on a earnout because you obligate yourself to do things that you don't want to do. If done well, right? If you have a 8-figure exit and you truly become work optional, I think the money becomes very irrelevant at that point. If you get extra 2 million on 10, I'm not sure that it changes what you do in your life.
These are some great observations and points. I love the perspective, all different angles here it's not just the capital that we're dealing with, it's the individuals and what their values are and what they want to do with their time. Now, kind of a forward-looking question here is a company is growing, let's say, going from like a $5 million to a $20 million and beyond company. What are some changes that they need to look at that become non-negotiable as they're planning to step away, if anything?
I would say systems. Biggest change is systems. Getting the right people to manage defining the systems, getting the right people, right leaders who can know how to manage the distance. A lot of businesses grow and their key leaders are based on loyalty, not competence. And that stage, when you're going to a 20 million business, it has to run like a corporation. And entrepreneurs struggle with that aspect. Most entrepreneurs think that as you get bigger, you have to get more efficient. And that is actually not true. As you get bigger, you become inefficient, but you have more credibility, you have more money, you have more resources, and that results in more profit and more other things. But you're not actually running a lean operation. Your overhead starts growing up. That's the aspect that most people don't understand, either because the overheads are fuzzy, you don't realize they're overheads, and you just put it in a different bucket. But as you get bigger, you need more tools, you need more resources, you have more regulations, all of that adds up. So getting a grasp on that and getting a good CEO who can run the ship without that owner mindset. The owner mindset is a strength in the beginning and can become a liability for a lot of owners in the middle market. And so making that transition to manager who's an operational manager running the systems well, even though they're not kind of fine tuned like the owner does, creates stability, creates repeatability. Those are the things that are unique to a business that add value and help them continue to grow without the owner trying to do everything. And so those are kind of the challenge. They're creating the systems that are reliable systems that work with the culture of the business, the nature of the market, and getting it done right.